kissing can be good for your health, according to the research. So we've got Dr. Naomi Middleton, clinical psychologist who specialises in gut health. Doctor, welcome to the show. Great to have you on board. Can you tell us what the research tells us around kissing potentially being good for your health?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So what the research shows us is that a single 10-second kiss can transfer up to 80 million bacteria between partners. And I think it can be quite surprising, actually, that this is a beneficial thing, because often when we hear that word bacteria, we're like, oh, what does that mean? Is that bad? But actually what we see is that this kissing helps to support a balanced gut microbiome and our overall digestive health. So by having this 10-second kiss, we're seeing this shared oral microbiome and creating this more diverse gut health. So that's really beneficial for our health overall.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. And just like in terms of gut health, I mean, how does that sort of contribute to our overall health, Doctor? I mean, there's been a lot of sort of, I suppose, sort of the research around sort of gut health. At least I've noticed it more and more over the last few years, and how it has an impact on us. But can you maybe give us, our listeners, a bit of an overview on sort of what gut health is?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I think often when we think of gut health, we maybe think just specifically of our stomach, but actually when we're talking about the gut, we're referring to anything really from the mouth downwards throughout our body. And so our gut health can be things like how we digest our food. It can contribute to how our bowel movements, to things like burping or gas, and can have loads of different impacts on how we feel, both physically and psychologically. And I think that's a really important thing for me, is that the health of our gut actually directly contributes to our psychological health and well-being as well. So if we're feeling stressed or worried or anxious, then that's communicated down to our gut, and our gut health changes in response to that. And also if our gut is inflamed or irritated in some way, that's communicated directly up to our brain, and that can change how we feel emotionally. So it can have huge impacts both physically and psychologically for us.
That's really interesting, and sort of one thing that can help that is, you've mentioned there obviously the research around sort of kissing, but is there anything else that we can maybe take into consideration around gut health? What sort of going off piece a little bit, but I suppose it's a good opportunity to maybe explore other areas as well. What else can we think about? What else are some of the things that people can take into consideration to improve gut health, Doctor?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's so many different things that we can do. So firstly, eating a diverse range of colourful foods. So we often talk about things like eating the rainbow, making sure that we're eating foods that have different colours, because that's going to bring in more benefits to our health, as well as eating fermented foods, because fermented foods are then containing that live bacteria, the friendly bacteria that we want in our bodies, that's really beneficial for us digesting our food, for example. But also things like staying hydrated, making sure we're drinking enough water, we're exercising regularly, moving our bodies. This is going to help our gut health as well. And also ensuring that we know how to manage stress and emotions, so that when we are feeling stressed, we've got some ways to manage that, and when we're feeling maybe quite strong or intense emotions, we know how to feel those emotions, so we're not trying to suppress them or block them. All of these things are going to contribute to helping to support our gut health, as well as getting a good night's sleep, which is often easier said than done, but that's also going to help to support our gut health too.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I mean, I a few years ago I started having, is it kefir? I don't know how to pronounce it, but I have it with a smoothie, a few blueberries, some broccoli, and that sort of stuff. And what's your take on sort of on kefir, Doctor? I mean, sort of what obviously different to different people, but I find that it sort of works for me. But is that generally sort of useful for gut health, do you think?
Yes, it's a fermented food, so any kind of those fermented foods are really beneficial because they're containing those live bacteria, which is what makes up our microbiome. And what's beneficial for our gut health is having that diversity in our microbiome. So when we're having those fermented foods, that's going to help to support that diversity.
Yeah, and I started having like sauerkraut as well and kimchi and stuff like that, to be honest, if I'm honest. And I do notice the difference. Maybe it might be sort of psychological, I don't know, but I do notice the difference in terms of sort of diet and food and that sort of correlation with sort of mood. But I suppose it's kind of another story of another day. But what's your sort of take on the gut and the immune system? Is there sort of a lot that's been said about that as well? I mean, is there sort of anything to sort of take into consideration in terms of like the immune system and the gut type thing, Doctor? Or?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's like what we were talking about earlier with the, when we're exchanging that bacteria, whether it's through kissing or we're getting in that bacteria through our diet, we're helping to create then a more diverse gut, and that's going to help to support our immune system and build that immune resilience. So it is really important, when we're experiencing a lot of stress and we're not sure how to manage that, that's going to impact our gut and our immune system. So it's important to know about these things and do what we can to support that function in our body.
Some of the research I've found really interesting over the last few years is sort of inflammation and along those lines really, and the impact that can have really sort of, food and it does make a sort of difference. Is there any sort of foods you can sort of, I know it's sort of, short of time, and I suppose different foods are going to probably be different for different people, but are there any sort of things, I consciously sort of cut bread, and I do notice the big difference really. What's your sort of take on sort of food, like starchy foods and maybe foods that are high in sugar as well?
I think it's really going to depend on the individual.
Yeah.
So some people will find certain foods just don't work for their bodies and other food groups do. Generally speaking, I would say it's not necessarily about kind of focusing on cutting out, but more thinking about what you can add into your diet that's beneficial for your gut. So for example, we might be sprinkling some nuts and seeds on top of our breakfast morning. Might be trying to add a different vegetable in that we don't normally have. Something like simple things that we can do to kind of add in, and also then just checking and seeing how that feels in our body when we do and we make those changes, because we can soon learn what does and doesn't kind of work for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm always looking for new ideas, and maybe the listeners are as well, to be fair, Doctor. And I know, like you've mentioned there, different foods are going to be different, could be different for different people type thing, but as a general sort of as a general sort of view type thing, you mentioned sort of fermented foods, is there sort of anything specific in terms of the you've mentioned obviously sort of like the rainbow, but is anything sort of specific that you can sort of think of without sort of putting you on the spot in terms of foods that are worth taking into sort of consideration for gut health?
Interestingly, what the kind of research is showing is it's like trying to have 30 different types of plant-based foods in our diet. So rather than thinking of, I need to definitely have this one thing, because actually if we have, too much of anything is not helpful. So kind of trying to look at our diet and think, what food groups am I missing? Or is there a particular colour food that I'm not really getting in too much? So I know that's harder because it's not as simple as, just eat this one thing and then everything will be okay. But I think I'd really encourage people to look at, okay, what maybe food groups am I missing, or what can I do to create that sort of diversity across different types of food in my diet?
Yeah, no, absolutely. What's just sort of brief, so like and fiber, I've introduced sort of oats as well into what I eat. I never used to up until maybe a few years ago, but I realised the importance of that. Is that sort of useful for sort of gut health, do you think, as a general rule, sort of?
Fiber, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think often it can be one of the groups of foods that we maybe struggle to get enough fiber in our diets, particularly in this sort of standard Western diet. So yeah, I think absolutely prioritizing kind of fiber, getting that in, that's going to help to support your gut. It's going to help to support your bowel movements, which is beneficial for your gut. So yeah, absolutely. I think you're right with that one.
Yeah, no, it's just always good to sort of, get a few ideas. And in terms of the research itself, is there any way people can go to sort of read more about the research, anywhere they can go along? No doubt they'll find it interesting and useful.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you can head over to yakult.info/gut love, and there's lots of resources there, lots of information there that people can turn to if they want to try and focus on improving their gut health, so they can get some ideas from there.
Yeah. And your work as well, Doctor, if you feel free to signpost people to sort of the work that you do. Have you got anything you'd like to sort of share in terms of they want to follow your work or?
Oh, great. Yeah, thank you. So I'm on Instagram as gut.health.psychologist, and I have a website as well, which is guthealthpsychologist.co.uk, I think, off the top of my head.
Yeah. No, it's brilliant. And that's been really interesting and informative. I found it, really, really interesting, and I'm sure our listeners did as well. I think it is a fascinating topic, that's for sure. And I'll definitely sort of check out the research as well, and always looking to get some new ideas and new tips, so to speak. So yeah, thanks for your time, Doctor. It's been really interesting and informative. Have a great day and a great weekend.
Thank you, you too.
Take care. Kissing can be good for your health, according to the research. So we've got Dr. Naomi Middleton, clinical psychologist who specialises in gut health.